3 days ago, my brand new landline phone rang. It was 2 a.m., a private number, one I haven't given out to a single living soul. I lifted the receiver, and all I heard was breathing. Heavy, ragged, human. And then a faint, low, sickeningly familiar whistle, followed by the sharp mechanical click of an iron padlock snapping shut. Let me take you back to where this nightmare began. It was September 2023. I'm a software developer, and I needed a full week of absolute, total silence to finish a project I'd been grinding on for months. No distractions, no people, no noise. So I did what a lot of remote workers do. I opened Airbnb, and I searched for the most isolated rental I could possibly find. I found it almost immediately. A small log cabin deep in the mountains of West Virginia, tucked at the very end of a rough, unpaved dirt road, surrounded on all sides by towering, dense pine trees. My nearest neighbor was a good 3 miles away. No grocery stores, no gas stations, just me, my laptop, and the mountain silence I was desperately craving. For the first 2 days, it was perfect. I was making real progress on my project. The cabin was warm and rustic. The air smelled like pine and wood smoke. I should have left it at that. I should have packed up on day 2 and driven back to civilization. But I didn't know then what I know now. I didn't know that for 2 full days I hadn't been alone. On my 3rd night in the cabin, a violent thunderstorm rolled in off the mountains. It knocked out my cell service completely, which is totally normal for those remote mountain hollows. No signal, no Wi-Fi, no way to contact anyone. I was completely cut off from the outside world. By 2 a.m., I was still awake, still working, sitting in the small living room with my laptop, a mug of coffee going cold beside me. The rain was hammering the wooden roof above me like fists. The thunder was rolling in long, low waves through the valley. I remember feeling tense, unsettled, the kind of feeling where the hairs on your arms stand up and your brain can't figure out why. And then I heard it, a sound, coming from the kitchen. It was a rhythmic, rapid ticking noise, metallic, mechanical. I grabbed my flashlight, walked toward the kitchen. Nothing looked out of place until I looked at the wall. Mounted on the wall of this old cabin was a 1970s rotary landline telephone. I'd noticed it when I first arrived and barely gave it a second glance. It was purely decorative. The host had put it there for aesthetics, a little vintage touch to make the cabin feel cozy and rustic. It had no reason, absolutely no reason, to ever work. But right now, the rotary dial was slowly spinning backward on its own, as if invisible fingers were turning it, digit by digit, all the way around. I stood frozen, watching the dial return to 0 with that old mechanical buzz. And then it rang. The sound exploded through the cabin like a gunshot. I physically jumped backward. My throat went completely dry. Who calls? A decorative landline, at 2 a.m. in an abandoned mountain cabin, during a storm. With a shaking hand, I picked up the receiver. I pressed it to my ear without saying a single word. All I heard at first was heavy, ragged, human breathing. And then, a voice. A man's voice, raspy, bone deep, and dead slow. He said, "The humidity in the basement is way too high tonight, and the wooden crate under the stairs is starting to rot. Go down and clean it." The line went dead, dissolving into harsh, continuous static. I stood there with the dead receiver pressed to my ear, trying to process what I had just heard. And then one thought hit me like a truck. This cabin doesn't have a basement. The host never mentioned a lower level. It wasn't in the listing. I had been here 3 days and seen every inch of this place. There was no basement. But the voice said there was. I walked down the narrow hallway toward the bedroom, heart pounding, flashlight cutting through the dark. At the very end of the hall, there was a heavy old wool rug stretched across the hardwood floor. I kicked it aside with my foot, and my breath stopped. Right there, a hidden trapdoor. The wooden planks matched the flooring so perfectly, I had walked over it 3 times a day for 3 days and never noticed. But right in the center of it, a rusted iron ring. I grabbed the ring with both hands and pulled. The trapdoor swung open, and instantly a wave of suffocating, musty humidity and foul rot blasted into my face, mixed with a chemical stench that smelled dangerously like formalin. Formaldehyde. The chemical they use to preserve bodies. I shone my flashlight down into the opening. Narrow, rotting wooden stairs descended into a pitch-black void. Every single instinct I had was screaming at me to run. But I went down. Each step groaned violently under my weight as I descended. When my boots finally hit the dirt floor of the basement, I realized the ceiling was incredibly low, barely above my head. The walls were made of raw, jagged stone, cold, damp, suffocating. I swept my flashlight beam directly under the stairs, exactly where the voice had told me to look. There it was, a massive rectangular wooden crate. It looked exactly like an old coffin, sealed with a heavy iron padlock. I approached it slowly, and then I noticed something that turned my stomach to ice. The padlock was already open, hanging loose, dangling, as if someone had recently unlocked it, from the inside. Or the outside. With a trembling hand, I lifted the heavy lid. The crate was packed with women's clothes, children's shoes, and right on top, dozens of Polaroid photographs. I picked one up, pointed my flashlight at it, and nearly collapsed. The photo was of me, taken through the bedroom window of this exact cabin. Me, asleep in bed, on my very first night here. In the next photo, I was cooking in the kitchen, and in the corner of the frame, you could see the edge of a hand gripping the camera. Someone had been living down here, in this dark hole, for 3 full days, watching every single move I made. A hysterical, uncontrollable panic took over my entire body. I dropped the photos. I spun toward the stairs, and then I heard it. A faint, low, whistling sound, coming from the deepest, darkest corner of the basement behind me. I turned around slowly, trembling from head to toe, forcing my flashlight beam toward the sound. Behind a massive pile of black trash bags in the corner, a hulking, completely bald man was crouching. He was wearing a filthy leather apron stained with dark, unidentifiable splotches. His eyes were bulging wide, completely devoid of any human expression whatsoever. And in his right hand, he was gripping a small iron bone saw. He was just sitting there, calmly, as if he had been waiting, patiently, for me to come down this entire time. The man let out a dry, muffled chuckle, and began to stand up, slow, pointing the saw directly at me. I didn't wait another fraction of a second. I flew up those stairs in a blind, screaming frenzy, every muscle in my body firing on pure adrenaline. I was almost at the top when his rough, ice-cold hand clamped around my left boot. He yanked me downward with terrifying, monstrous strength. I kicked back with my free leg, every ounce of adrenaline I had left. My heel connected with his face. He lost his grip. I scrambled out onto the hallway floor and slammed the trapdoor shut. I dragged the heavy kitchen refrigerator across the floor and shoved it directly on top of the trapdoor. Then I bolted out the front door and threw myself into the freezing mountain storm. My car battery was dead from the cold. I didn't even try. I ran on foot, down that pitch-black dirt road, sprinting through the forest for 2 full hours, screaming and sobbing into the wind, until I finally hit the main highway. A semi-truck driver spotted me, pulled over, and saved my life, calling 911 immediately. When state troopers raided the cabin the following morning, they found the wooden trapdoor completely splintered from the inside. The heavy refrigerator flipped onto its side, and he was gone. But what the lead detective told me afterward made my blood run permanently cold. Buried deep beneath the dirt floor of that basement, they uncovered the skeletal remains of 4 previous renters, 4 people, all of whom had vanished from that exact cabin over the previous 2 years. The Airbnb account was a ghost, a completely stolen identity. The case remains wide open to this day, and the man in the basement was never caught. I moved to New York City after that, 10th floor apartment, bright lights, millions of people around me at all hours, heavy security. I told myself I was safe. I told myself it was over. 3 days ago, my brand new landline phone rang. It was 2 a.m., a completely private number I hadn't given to a single person alive. I picked it up. No words, just heavy, ragged breathing. Then that low, faint whistle. The same whistle from that basement corner. And at the very end, the sharp, mechanical click of an iron padlock snapping shut. I still get calls at 2 a.m., and I don't even own a landline. If this story kept you up tonight, you're not alone. Hit that subscribe button. I drop new stories every single week. And leave a lock emoji in the comments if that ending got you. See you next time, if I'm still here to make it.